As soon as that comes in here, we got it. I'm just waiting for this. Tick-tock, waiting for that is going to come in, and then it's got to be muted. As soon as that comes, I mute that, and voila, that guy goes away for now. Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is part of our Harmony Chat. We get together every week, and 1 week we share a lesson. We're pulling this from Tony's archive of the video chat and our group's notes. So we're taking this to the next level of what we've learned through that experience. And this week, well, what we do is we meet 1 week and we go over a lesson and we take turns giving a lesson. And then we go and compose something interesting from what we've learned or what has inspired us from whatever we've talked about. And then we come back the following week and we share those, give critique and suggestions, and share more ideas. So this is quite fun. And this time I get to be the presenter. And today we're going to be going through the Traveling Through 24 Keys. So I hope we'll go through this without any technical little glitches. I have a lot of windows open and a lot of different programs I'm going back and forth with. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Okay, so there's a bunch of files up in PyBox that I'm going to go over in just a minute. But first I want to get into the lesson and talk about what it was that the original lesson that we did. And we did this, what, a year ago, or we did this back in September, where we went through this exercise with Tony and then created pieces around this. So here we go. Whoops, I have to share the screen. Let me get this going. And I'm going to go to desktop 4. All right. So this is one of our Google Docs that has all of the notes from the various sessions that we did over the past couple of years. And this was about constructing a well-designed melody using a question and consequence answer kinds of phrases. But this was done over a journey of going through all 24 keys. So this explains just the basics of what he went through in the video, where he's going from, and let me just move this a little bit. And you can see the keys here. So for example, if you're in, he's starting in C, but he's starting from the 5 chord. So the 5 chord is a dominant 7. And then he's going to the C. And then he's going to the 5 of the relative minor, which in this case is the E7, and then down to the relative minor. And that progression repeats. Now you're going to the 5 of where you were. So then you're going to go to, I believe it was, well, where did it go? See, one of the things that I did, you can see this, is I made notes, because it's a beautiful exercise as it's transforming and kind of going around this little circle, but it's really easy to get lost. And I kept getting lost. Then all of a sudden, wait a minute, I got that one wrong, and now I'm in another key. So you have to be careful if you're going through this cycle, but it's a really great thing once you can get in and practice it. So, it starts from G to C, E7 to A minor, and then it goes to C7, which is the 5th, and it keeps going in that loop. All right. So this is mapped out. It's pretty straightforward. What I did today is I did a couple things. I created a DAW file, and I put in I mapped out the chords, and I blocked out some piano parts, and then some melodies and some nothing fancy, but a couple melodies, a melody and a counter melody, which is really kind of just the second melody is just kind of a cut and paste and move around of the original melody, just so there's some flow. But the second part of what Tony talked about, which I really appreciated, was the ascending and descending bass lines within the chord. So if you're starting on, say, the G, and then you're going either down to the nearest chord tone as you're progressing, or going up to the nearest chord tone. And that is just a fantastic formula that I really had a lot of fun with, and I'll share some examples of that in a minute. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go to our, let me move this around. I'm going to go to the DAW file that I created. And this is pretty straightforward. You see, I have the chords kind of mapped out. This is, I mean, going at 90 beats a minute, it ends up being just about 2 minutes to go through all 24 keys for this cycle. But what I'm going to do is I'll just play the piano so you can you can hear this. I put up a reference file of the piano, but you can hear the piano. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and add after we get into this a little bit, I'll add some other elements. I'll add the melody, or I'll add some of the ascending and descending lines. So you can listen to the whole thing when with the files that I have in the directories. But I'm just going to probably play little sections just to get you through the idea here. And then there's really a whole world of stuff that you can do with this formula. All right, so starting at the beginning, just the piano.
Chris, we're not hearing it well.
You're not hearing it well? Okay, stop in a second. Where do I bring that up here? Okay, that should be, oh, you know what? I probably have to go back to sharing screen. No, I have that sound a high definite fidelity. Got that there. Are you hearing the piano?
No. No.
Oh, well, that's kind of sucky.
We heard it before, but intermittently. Now we're not hearing it at all.
Well,
Yeah, I heard that.
Intermittently.
Is it breaking up then?
Yes.
Well, that's super, because everything should be working right. Any suggestions, guys, on what I could try here? That's oh, you know what?
When you did the Zoom link, did you click on audio?
Yeah, I clicked on it. I clicked on
Original
it.
music.
Original sound.
Original sound.
Let me try this for a second, and original sound for musicians off. Let me try that. It's mono. I'm in mono with this.
Right.
Maybe that is the difference, which will be interesting because I want to learn how to get this right. Desktop 4. All right.
Yeah, it's working now.
Okay. Excellent. So now I'm going to rewind and play. Oops. Where do we go? Back over here. You hear it now?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I just learned something. So you can hear me in stereo if I have that off. No, you can't hear me in stereo now. But if I have that off, then I can play stereo from my DAW versus when it's on, you can hear me in stereo. So that's a really important thing to know when you guys are presenting too, because that's going to make a big difference. It's probably going to be pretty much the same. All right. Well, we learned something about Zoom today. This is fantastic. All right. Getting back to the DAW, this is just the piano starting from the beginning, and you'll hear it going through the progression. C, E7, A minor, C7, F, A7, D minor. That just keeps going around in a circle until you get to the end, and then it repeats, which is pretty cool. What makes this whole thing, this whole formula really kind of amazing is when you start doing what Tony put in, it's in this original document that we have here, is when he's playing with the ascending and descending bass lines. So you can look that up in the document over there. But what I did here is I have 4 parts. I have 2 cellos and 2 basses. What I did is I created an ascending and well, ascending and a descending line of the two cellos. And then I transpose them down an octave into the contrabasses, and then I would not really play both of the basses at the same time because you start getting a little bit of a contrast with the lower limits, but it does sound okay when they're all four playing because they're doubled. I have a high and a low cello and a high and low bass line going together. So it sounds okay, but you do end up with some conflicts because there's, I think, a major sixth, and it starts getting kind of dicey. But let's listen just to the cello with that piano, and it really sounds beautiful. Now we go down. We're still going down even though I went up an octave. Now what's fun is when I add the bass version of the well, I'll do the two cellos first, okay? So
Can I ask a question?
yes.
When you're playing this, I mean, I see the DAW thing, but do you have a view of either the MIDI or a notation view that we could be looking at while that's playing?
That's a great idea. Great idea. I'm gonna grab all of it over here, and then I'll put this in over here so you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have a little like click for notation that way?
I can't really go along with the notation in this one. I mean, pull
Okay,
up
that's fine. Well, this is fun.
okay.
This makes a little more sense.
Try this. Now this has all the lines in it, so you're seeing everything versus just the two parts that I'm playing in the bass, and you're also seeing the melody. But you see that there's some space in there between them, and that's kind of the beauty of how this exercise ended up, panning out. I did have to tweak a couple things when I had that lower interval, and then I also got out of range with the bass when I went down after I transposed. So there's a couple things that are changed. One of the things that is also you'll see throughout this is as I was playing the piano part, I did take the liberty of a couple inversions, but they're all the same notes. There's only 12. So I included the MIDI file. There's a MO2 or something. There's a MIDI file in there, and you can put that into your DAW. I originally did this with all piano, so to get the harmonies blocked out before I sent them to instruments. So the MIDI file should work in any of your DAWs if you want to try and import it and play with it. The next thing that I wanted to try is that was the two cellos. Now, if I take, I can double up the cello with the bass, and that sounds a little fuller. And then I can swap out the bass with the other bass if I wanted to, which goes with the top cello line. And then that sounds like this. Now I'm going to add in one of the melodies, and actually I'm going to take out the other lines and then just hear the piano in the melody. And this will be with the oboe. I doubled the oboe with the violin just to give it a little bit more flavor. Okay, pretty simple melody. I mean, I can see artificial intelligence writing songs like this because this is just a formula. I didn't really do anything that creative with it. I just mapped it out, and it sounds beautiful. Really, it's just because it's harmonically pretty cool. Anyways, I'm going to add in the flute, which is a little bit of a counter melody. I'll start on the F instead of the C. So you'll hear it come in. Now I'm going to add in one of the cellos. And then after the cellos, or after the flute and the cello, or the flute and the oboe are done, then I'm going to add in the violin, which doubles the oboe, just to give it something a little flavor. And now I'm going to add the second cello. And we've got the second cello going in with the two counter melodies. Now I add in the bass to give it a little fullness. Now I'm actually going to switch the basses to a different one. So you can switch back and forth. Now one of the things that I did as well with the audio files is I went through, and this is what Tony was talking about in the video, of you can use the ascending line or the descending line depending on what kind of mood you're trying to present. So for example, I'm going to take, I'll start with just the cello, and then let's actually do this. I'm going to I'll leave the one bass line off, and I'll turn these two guys on, and then I'll go through, and I'm just going to, let's take this one, and I'm going to mute these, and then I'm going to have just that one come in here, and you can just get an idea of how that's going to play. Let's take out these two again with that, because we can build with that. We'll let them all come in here, and then with that one, we'll take out the bass. Whoops, it's this one. Then over here, let's just take out everything and have the piano and well, we'll leave the violin in. And this is just to give you an idea. We'll just kind of go with like this. And so the beauty is these things can kind of get turned on and off, and knowing where to kind of put them for the type of mood that you're trying to work with. This is just a really awesome tool for connecting with various emotions, because they all have everything has a little bit different. Now, remember when we were listening to those oscillation between two notes or two chords to try and get that figure out where they connect with us emotionally? This is the same kind of thing within this context of changing keys that we can do, leveraging the tools. It's pretty cool. I'm going to go back to the beginning, and we'll take a listen with these things muted till about halfway through. you throw in some fun percussion and crescendos and get some dynamics in here, and it's music. I mean, it's just it's music all by itself. It's like I hardly did anything. I just mapped out a formula, which is pretty cool. And so if you put the human element into this kind of an exercise combined with the formula itself, you really have a real powerful baseline to build it's a foundation to build something really cool and powerful and dynamic, because you're just using that natural counterpoint by going up and down the chord scales and that sort of thing. In the other example that I'm going to share, I did something a little bit different, but all I'm doing for the melody really is bouncing between chord tones. So I have that same up and ascending and descending line, and then I have bouncing around between chord tones for the melody, and it's kind of cool. It's a little darker, different chords, but anyways, any questions on this so far? Yeah, it's pretty straightforward and pretty cool. You do have the PDF that you can look at, which is like this. So this is the PDF that goes along with it. And as I mentioned when I was, let's start at the beginning. There we go. The transcription, I took this from a MIDI file and put it into Dorico. I haven't used Dorico before, so this was my introduction and getting the rust out and trying to figure this out. There are a couple little glitches, such as you're going to see these little X marks over here. That little X means a double sharp, so that's going to be up a whole step from what you see there. So I don't know if people are used to seeing that. It took me for a loop. I had to look it up and try and find out what it was when it first came out. But that's a double sharp, what that little X stands for. Otherwise, the incidental should be straight through there. The key signature is blank, so everything else is reflected in the notes as you go through. Pretty straightforward. You're just seeing that you have the ascending and descending lines that I was muting and turning on and off. It wasn't intended to be played all at once. It was because of the exercise element of this. Miguel, did you have a question?
Yes, Chris. When I look at the file that you posted, one was MIDI, the other one was Dorico, and the other one is Cubase. The MIDI, I tried the MIDI at least to open it, but I couldn't. So can we transpose it to a different location or something like that? Can we transfer it?
Transfer it? What do you mean? Well, yeah, you have to download it and then import it into your DAW.
Okay, so when I am PBAX, so PBAX give me the option to download it.
I'm sorry, say that again?
PBAX give me the option to download it.
Yes.
It should. Did anybody else have a problem with that? Okay, cool. So if you have a problem, just text me offline and I'll set it up so you can get in there. That'd be fine. No problem.
Chris, Tony's original sheet that was in the Google Drive, did you also put that in PyBox? I don't think so. That one, right?
I did not, but I can.
It's okay. It's in the Google Drive,
It's
right?
in the Google Drive, Dick.
Okay, fine.
That's what I've been keeping.
Chris?
Yes, sir.
There must be some way globally to make them enharmonic spellings. There must be a way. I have no idea what it is.
I just couldn't find it, and so if anybody watching this knows how to fix that in Dorico, I'd love to learn that, because I want to be able to have better scores when I present them.
I'll tell you, even in Sibelius, when you change the key, you occasionally get that kind of thing. And I've just been doing it note by note when I want to get rid of it. I haven't even found a way to do it in a dedicated program like Sibelius.
Okay. Well, that will be a lesson for another day, because I think it's going to be valuable to all of us to cross this bridge and get better at being able to write get written scores.
Did you set up a key in Dorico? Did you say like C major?
No, I did not do that. But, well, it was naturally just C when I imported it. But and that's when it gave me the 7 sharps, which was kind of weird. So then I deleted the 7 sharps, and this is what I got. And I'm like, I at least got it to play, because I wrestled with this thing, wrestling.
That was just, Oracle has a cynic inside that if you don't declare it, it's going to give you 5 sharps or whatever.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering, since I paid my $1 million to Steinberg already, whether there's a free copy of Dorico somewhere.
I think they have a
You have a
trial version.
I think
Trial.
they have a trial version.
Yeah.
They have a trial version.
For me, it was worth the investment, and I think you get a discount if you're already with Cubase.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm really impressed with it. It's a little quirky to get used to, but I like the fact that it really has a DAW component kind of piece of it, and I was able to connect it to my libraries, so it sounds pretty good.
There's another program that is a combined DAW and a notation software. I forgot the name of it. It's not Overture something 5. Anybody know what it is? Not
I don't know.
Opera
I mean,
5.
I'm using Studio One, which is integrated with Notion, and
Yeah,
again,
that's right. It is integrated with Notion.
and
Yeah.
I'm actually going through an exercise now because post Momentum, we a group of us got together, and we're contracted an orchestra in Macedonia, I think it is.
Oh, cool.
You know, that is so we're each trying to get like a time slot, enough for 3 takes of like a 3-minute piece, right? So I'm in the middle of writing that and looking at the so to me it's been a really good exercise to going back and forth between here's my DAW mock-up and here's what it looks like in notation, at least in the DAW. And then I'm going to have to, once I think I got it down, then I'll export it into Notion, which is very integrated with Studio One, which will give me much more capabilities for making crescendos and marking pizzicato and all the articulation. So I'm hoping that works, because
Somebody's got to come out with a killer combination of the two. I mean, just one that really nails it, but nobody has yet.
I think Dorico actually will.
yeah.
I have a lot of confidence in that.
I think they will.
I mean, integration with Cubase,
Well, that's
Yeah.
that's the whole idea of Dorico.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes it a head and shoulders above Finale and Sibelius in that respect. But it's a whole different environment.
It is, and it's been a learning curve,
boy.
but there was some things that it was easier to get.
Oh yeah, it's like
Can you
if,
go back and forth?
if you know Sibelius or Finale, you might as well just throw it out the window because it's completely different.
Yeah, I mean, as you go back and forth, I mean, the thing I like about Studio One thing is I can start in Studio One, bring it over to Notion, make a bunch of changes, and then bring it back.
You
How
can.
well does it go over to Notion? I mean, what do you have to do? Is
You,
it external to the program? You have to
you-
export and import?
Yeah, it's like there's if you want to export a mix down or extend stems, and then there's an export to Notion, right?
Right.
Like
Oh,
select-
boy. Nice.
Well,
Yeah.
the
Does
other
it
thing-
does it export it as a MIDI file or as an ISMLP what is
Yeah.
it? The
Yeah. That,
Well,
notation file.
Well, it exports it directly. It opens up Notion, and within Notion, you get your notation software. And the initial view is a DAW view. So instead of notes, you have lines where every
Gotcha.
note.
Yeah.
But then there's a one button click that says convert to notation. It goes.
Well, Logic has basically the same thing, but it's not. You couldn't do. I wouldn't want to do an orchestral score on it. It's like
I'm testing this one out because the thing that's built into Studio One is not a fully capable thing. The Notion, there's always it's like all this stuff. Right?
I can
You find stuff out.
yeah.
I can pull up a score view and
Yeah.
Nuts, right?
Cubase,
That's what it is.
it's just different,
it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to set up the parameters. I just clicked on it, but I can
Get
set
your
up
dot
the-
matrix printer out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
So
I want to get back to because there's a
Get
couple.
back to the lesson. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I want to share related to this that I think are pretty cool and you might find interesting for kind of taking this whole concept and kind of going into a unique direction. But before we go, since we brought it up, the other thing that I'm really impressed with Studio One and Personas is they really got ahead of the curve I'm not a Studio One user. I might get it at some point, but I'm really impressed with the fact that this mixer and their whole series, this 32.
Yeah, you have the 32 Personas.
Yeah, the digital
Right.
mixers.
Yeah, I have the
Also-
16 here. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. They're integrated with Studio One, and then Studio One, if they stay on the roll where they're going, they're a force to be contended with. Absolutely. I really appreciate what they're doing over there. That's fantastic. I mean, I'm hopeful, since I have so much of my heart invested in and time invested in Cubase, that Doracle is going to come along as well, and I have a lot to learn in that. So anyways, getting back to the lesson, what I wanted to share with you guys was kind of that next level, in that, this relates to the pivot chords that we talked about last time, where you take a chord. Well, make sure I have this in the right. Let me get on the piano. Okay, so one of the things I was playing around with the pivot chord is I'm into the jazz thing, right? So I was.
That's cool, man.
I love that, just kind of playing that, where you're just taking the bottom two notes and you're raising them, and that really is a version of a 5 chord. And so what I did is I took that concept that I was playing with that, and I did the same thing. So I take a C major. Well, wait, actually, before I go there, one of the things that we could have done with this exercise, Tony started from the 5 chord and then went to the C, all right? Which, when you look at the pivot tones, you're going from G to C, right? You got you got to pivot. This is just really key for all this stuff that we're doing. Well, he could have started on C. It sounds different. It's the same chords kind of in that circle, but anyway, so we can kind of start anywhere, but what I did for this kind of second version that I'm going to share is I started playing with just going up a half step and then going to the relative minor, and then doing that in a circle. So that changing of the keys of 24 keys is a pretty cool concept, because it allows you to just kind of flow. It's a technique and a formula for flowing to a particular destination that you want to go. And as an example, let me pull up the other thing. This one I actually have in Dorico. So since we were talking about Dorico, bada boom, this is it. Okay. I didn't do all 24 keys in this particular one. I did a shorter version, but it's pretty much the same kind of thing. I'm using different chords. So I'm starting with the C, and then I'm just raising that half step. And that is a G7 flat 5, which is the 5 chord of C. Then I go to the A minor, and I do the same thing, up a half step on the 2 bottom notes. And that is a 5 chord diminished of A, which is really the E. So you're going 1-5-1-5, but you're using that mechanism of going from the major to the minor, major to the minor. And what I did was, then I took that same concept that he had with that ascending and descending bass line, which would follow the chord tone, the closest chord tone as it's going down, closest chord tone going up. And you have a couple variants that you can do that make it a little different, but because you don't always have to land on the next key on the tonic, you can kind of play around and go to different places. But the next chord tone or thereabouts, and you can really create these wonderful lines that go up and down throughout your piece. And then on the top, what I did for this is I created a pretty simple melody that's kind of jumping around the chord tones. With, I think there's one or two passing notes in there, but they're really jumping around in the chord tones. And then I took another line that you'll hear the violin part in here is a counter melody, which is doing the same thing. It's just jumping between chord tones, but it's trying. So you have these two different voices that are jumping chord tones. You have the block chord that's just being played, and then you have the ascending and descending bass lines. And this is a very different mood, but you'll hear some similarities between the two things that I was doing, because it's going, it's essentially in the same key, starts in the same key, and but it's very different because of the color in the tone, or in the chords, and the beauty is that by creating these kinds of formulas and going through this, it's training my ear to be able to go, oh, well, I want to use this kind of a harmonic structure to create that kind of a mood, and I can go on a journey without resolving the key, kind of passing through a variety of places and keeping it interesting, and never really resolving until I want to, which is a pretty cool tool set to master, I think. So this is my second version of that. I don't know how it's going to sound for sure in this, because sometimes it doesn't always play correctly, but we'll give it a shot. And E would have just been continued on to the next key. Now, I think I let everything play in here, but I can turn things off. And if you look on the DAW version of this, you see one's going up while the other one's going down. And you can kind of match your lines so they're both going up and then both going down, or they're going in different directions. And either way that you try to play with it, it sounds good. It's really a neat way to kind of safely navigate a counterpoint within the key that you're in. So I don't know if, hopefully you found that interesting. I did put up a version of this in a PDF that you'll see. It's just version 2 in the Pi box, and I believe there's also an audio version of that one as well. So this one I have an audio and I have a Dorical file up there too if you want, and because I did this one in Dorical because I didn't want to screw around with that MIDI import stuff, and I wanted to learn how to input information directly into Dorical. I hope you found that interesting. That was mostly what I have to present today. There's a bunch of files. You can play with them. You can, beat them up, take them apart, do whatever you want with them. And then, I'm really curious to see what you guys come up with for a piece that will take these concepts. And you don't have to necessarily stay in the box that Tony had done with his chord progression. You can. You could also, take what I did and play around and do something cool with it and orchestrate it and have fun. Or you can take a different concept like I did here, because there's, and Miguel, before I answer your question, the thing that you can do as an example, I went from here, if you look at this is a C, and then I went up, okay? Just to give you some ideas to play with, you can go the other way. So you can take the top two notes and bring them down, not just the bottom notes. So you can, and then work your way through the keys the same way. You can create your own patterns like that. I was going down, I did a chromatic version. Whoops, that's not it. Down, and then here. And then you can make it a longer phrase where you go ba 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 da, and then now you're in the A minor, and then go around. You can have something completely different. You don't need to go major minor in each of the keys that way. You can pick a different pattern, but pick that pattern. And I think the beauty of what at least what he did for me is he opened my mind in taking that ascending and descending lines, going to the closest chord tones, staying in the middle and staying on the bottom, and then having these various harmonies going on, and then just jumping around from whatever the chord tones are and throwing in your passing notes in between them, which is, I believe, the other melodic exercise that he had in one of the lessons, which really was, take your chord tones, figure out how you're going to get there, add the rhythms that feel right, and kind of move up and down. But that's for another day. Somebody else is going to dig into that whole lesson about effective melody creation and that sort of thing. Miguel, you had a question.
Well, I like the development that you did. I think that opened our minds to see maybe other, you are using almost the same chords in a different order, but it works very fine, I think. And I was wondering, because of the class by itself, what is the reason he's using major and the relative minor, and then it goes down, with in the circle 5. It could be any combination, right? It's 4 chords, any combination, and you go in the circle 5.
Well, you could make it a 6-chord pattern. The idea is creating kind of formulas, but his is a great baseline, and the difference between where I started and where he started from the 5 and then went there. So you don't necessarily have to start from the 1. So whatever kind of pattern that you create, you can do the same kind of thing. It's a way of approaching the harmony so that you can package it and navigate through it. That's what I got out of it that I thought was really fun. I don't know. Did anybody else get anything out of this that, unique to what I've shared, or do you agree with me, or what? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I mean, it's like a lot of these techniques, right? We're going to use these, with a purpose, right? Or, what are we trying to accomplish? And, and what structure is that going to fit within, right? So to me, it's like, you can do the descending bass line. You're going through those things that way, or you can do them. What I think what you came up with is definitely much more interesting with the augmenting chords and stuff like that. But where it makes sense, right, and combine these in different ways. Yep. And maybe instead of having a structure that is hey, I'm changing keys like this, it's like I'm going to hang out in this key for a longer period of time for like tension or relief, and then I'm going to go and take it either. Or maybe I'll go backwards and come back again, right? So it all depends on the purpose of what you're trying to write. But it gives you a lot of gives you a formula that I think is useful for sure.
Useful tools, yeah. I mean, like, for example, one of the things, and you just made me think of this. What if you're starting on the C and you're going, you're doing this one, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to we go to the next one is G, but in G, I think he goes to the D. Then you go to the second one that he's doing, and you're doing let's see, where are we going? And you go to the D7. What I'm saying is you combine the two of them. You can play with them because you're connecting somehow in the same key. There's just so many options. I love it.
Yes.
You had something you were going to throw in there, Art.
When you used the 2 bass lines, one ascending and one descending, it created some really interesting contrary motion kind of things. But I think the main reason that he said, vary them as far as going up and down was because if you keep going down, you're going to get in trouble. So, what you did was interesting and worked, but I don't think that was his main objective. I think it was like, at some point you have to come back up, because otherwise you're going to be.
Well, that's what we did. That's what we did. We went up and down. But I think
I know, but you combined them together.
you don't have to. I mean,
No, I understand, but I think that the reason that he did that was because of range limitations and low interval limit. So at some point, you're going to have to come back up. So that's why he gave us the options of going down and coming up.
Yeah.
So, but what you did was interesting and worked. But I don't think that was Tony's main objective for doing that. But fine.
What I got out of the video of his main objective is to leverage an ascending or descending or combination lines to connect to the emotions. Because, for example, if I don't have any of that on at all, it has a different emotion. There's no ascending or descending line, but then I can throw that in. To change their mood. And it's going up, and then I stop it. He was throwing it in to give, because if you stay with the chords all the way through, your bass is in the same place. But if you don't necessarily have to do it as a line, it can just change in a different, as you're going through it. Just being aware that you can use alternate bass notes to change the emotion and build the tension. I think one of the points that he made was like, if you're going down, that's a different feeling than going up and getting excited about something or building to something. You don't want to have the down line as you're going up, trying to build to a particular emotion. So it was more of a tool to throw in as you're trying to connect to the emotion of the music that you're trying to create. That's what I got out of it. And it's, it's not like, I just found it fascinating when I put all these things together that they actually sounded good at the same time. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. But they don't necessarily need to be there, or nor should they, for what you're trying to do. They're just a tool to use. Stuart, what do you think of this?
Sorry, I came in late to the party, and so I'm just trying to get my head around what you're actually doing. So I'm looking at the notes here, traveling through 24 keys. So am I right in thinking that you're going from a major key, starting on the fifth, and then you're playing a dominant seventh then, and then you go into the 1 chord, yeah, and then you switch over to a minor key, or do you stay in a major, or what do you do?
You play the dominant of the minor next, and then you go to the minor key.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's. So are you always going between a major key and a minor key? Is that the aim of the exercise?
Yeah. And I did the same thing in the second version that I did. I went between the major and the minor. That was
right.
The formula that I used, because that's interesting and relevant to this. I mean,
are you exploiting the 5 chord of the minor and making it major? Is that what you're exploiting to get that ambiguity between the keys? Is that what's happening?
Transition.
Yeah, to transition.
Yeah, the dominant 7 chord is what really kind of pulls you in as a 5 chord to the key. So I didn't put that in. So he had it where he was going G and then to the dominant. I didn't block the chords out that way. I kind of naturally played it that way.
Well, the thing is that the 7th of the dominant chord is the scalar bass line going down. So G, exactly. F, E natural, which is C over E, and then
you don't necessarily have to go down in the same order. You can move that around, starting and stopping in different places. But that ascending line is really powerful, or ascending or descending line, when they're going to the next available chord. It sounds more natural than bouncing around. It's because you're in a lower register. If you are bouncing around, it actually works to your advantage in the upper registers because it makes the melody a little more interesting and kind of counterplay with everything else that's going on. If you have a lot going on,
How do you make it go up then?
What do you mean? How did I make?
You're
it go
saying use ascending and descending. So how do you make it go back up again?
So,
If you're-
so C on the C chord, then D, then D on the G chord, and then F on the G7 chord you could do. And then, you know, you're back to C. Well, you could use a G.
So it's just using different inversions, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the descending, G to F to E to C. And then the ascending is right here, which is the G to B to C to E.
Okay.
So this is the third, and then you're going to the fifth. And here you're starting on the fifth and going to the seventh. Or are you? No, yeah, you're going to the you're going to the seventh. Which you don't necessarily need to. You can go to any of the other notes if you want. You don't have to go in a straight line. You could move this down to you can come down to here or whatever. You can play around with it.
Yeah.
So and you also have you could leave this on the G and then come up to the C when you're on the A. You know, there's a lot of options that you have, but the idea is that it's not the root. You're not playing the root all the way through. You're not going G, C, back and forth.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, I found it a really eye-opening exercise to do. It helped me really kind of see a picture of how the chords can all have a relationship, taking you on a journey while allowing a variety of different types of movement up and down in the bass or even in the middle. So even the cello really it isn't in the bass in many places. It's really in the middle. And so you can take that, it's like, wow, there's some really cool ways to do counterpoint within here. And some of it works in the bass where it's really changing the whole, structure of what the chord's supposed to be. But just that ascending and descending line, and you could start from different notes within the chord too. You don't necessarily have to start from the fifth or the root. And it's just really a neat tool to use, I think. So. How about you, Dick?
Yeah, I need to fool around with it. I mean, there's just so many ways I could, like you did, I could change the order of things a little bit, depending upon moods, and also, of course, the bass line is mood friendly, as you said. There's a lot to consider here. Like Mike said, though, it depends upon what you want to do, and you can get further afield from the formula, either accidentally or intentionally, depending upon what you want to do.
Sounds right.
It's interesting to start off with the formula and then just get a little bit further and a little bit further away from it as your thoughts come together. It's just a matter of individually sitting down and fooling around with this. Yeah.
And seeing where the journey takes you.
Yeah, no, exactly. As you played the two bass lines together and you said, whoa, my God, listen to that. So, you just never know. You just never know. I think in the exercise, I would stay away a little bit from trying to go through all major and minor keys, all 24 keys, because that's not really the objective of where you want to go. I mean, maybe it is, but it probably isn't. And I would just go so far, and then maybe as a B section or something like that, you take the formula and you switch the formula around a little bit, but you don't necessarily need to go through all 24 keys.
Well, you might be in C, you go to F, you go to C, go to
Yeah.
F, and then all of a sudden, okay,
I want to go to the B flat as this dominant 7 going down to, you know, and you might then use the tool as a mechanism to get to a key. And I think, you know, just having the ability to have a little thing in your toolbox to get there and make something interesting, especially when we're doing like more orchestral kinds of things where we have to create some interesting flavors and transitions to take people on a journey with a little bit of surprise.
Well, I'm actually thinking of the jazz motifs to see whether or not this might lead me someplace there. It may not. I don't know, and I may get back to orchestral, but I think I would give it a shot maybe with a jazz motif. The problem is I don't have a good library. The good jazz library is $6,000-7,000, so I'm not going there.
The jazz motifs don't feel really as natural to the Tony side of the exercise, but if you mix it and you have a few of the other dark chords in there, I think that's what, because I don't think there's really any tritones used.
Yeah.
In this,
Dick, you could adapt this exercise, and instead of using dominant chords, use 2/5 progressions.
Yep.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Sure. Yeah, but although that might have come naturally, and then I would have said, well, I'm really getting away from the exercise, you know, so.
Yeah, but you could stick with the exercise and still just put a 2 in front of the dominant.
Yeah, sure, of course.
And it's still the exercise.
Yeah, I suppose so. Well, yeah.
It's about a journey that you're creating musically and how you're going to get there. And
so how many times though? Yeah. So how many times you think you're starting a composition and you're trying to go to a particular place? And I wonder if you ever work your way backwards into this. You say, oh my gosh, that's Tony's exercise that I've created for a different reason. You know, I wonder how many times that happens, because it sounds good. And we write things that sound good. Yeah.
I think what you're going to do is you're going to kind of stumble on having this in your toolbox. You're going to be
you're right. Yeah, of course.
I got to get to here. How do what's going to be and you go, oh yeah, I tried that thing before. Oh, that'll work. And then you're there and you go, huh, cool.
Yeah. It's in the toolbox. You're right. Sure.
And it might be Tony, 2 other exercises ago of Tony's, and then you might use this one, and then you might.
Oh well, I mean, we always use Tony's other stuff, the chord substitutions, all of the stuff, the pivot chords, and I find myself, sometimes I find myself using those. Say, oh, wait a minute, that belongs to Tony. I better give him credit for that, because you've done it for a different reason. Yeah.
But here's the thing that Tony mentioned specifically. It's not necessarily Tony's.
Of course not. I'm only kidding. Of course not.
He was saying, hey, this is used every day in pop music, and it came from Bach and Beethoven and all the greats. And he's showing us the tools that everybody's using and ways to think about it so that we can crack it open and be able to really leverage those tools to their maximum potential for ourselves.
By the way, did anybody watch Tony's latest video on the syncopation is tool of the devil? Oh, you gotta watch it. It's hilarious.
Is it in English? Is it in English?
Well, you can use the translate thing. That Stewart turned this on too.
Yes, it's really handy.
Hey, I'm going to stop the recording, you guys, so we can still stay on and chat. But thank you, everybody, for joining, allowing me to present something. There's a bunch of files in PyBox, and we're going to create an exercise. We're going to create some kind of a piece between now and next week. And if you watch this, check with us next week and listen away to the cool things that this group creates. And if you are just listening to this and you're before next week and you still want to write something, please do and join us, because that's what it's all about, that collaboration. Thank you very much. I'm Chris. This is Art. This is Mike. This is Dick. And this is Stuart and Miguel. He doesn't have a face today, but we love him anyways. We are the Harmony Chat.